Overlooked games, thoughtful discussion. This is Under the Radar. All right, welcome to this week's Under the Radar. Our game is Tornado Outbreak. Matt, what system is this for?
It's available for all the consoles, Wii, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360.
Now, what version are we playing?
We'll be playing it on the Wii.
Oh, cool. So anything else you know about this game?
It came out September 29th of last year, 2009. I know that it's a single-player game, but it also has some multiplayer aspects I'm excited to check out, and I know it's rated E for everyone.
I'm not sure what to expect. I'm hoping it's not. You know, I really have no idea what this game's going to be like. I'm hoping that it's more on the maybe a good balance of like action and strategy. I'm just hoping it's not like a whole lot of strategy and management, like a semi kind of game.
I'm imagining it's going to be sort of a Katamari deal. But let me read you the quote I have in front of me. Harness the power of a raging tornado as you tear through open environments, chewing up the landscape and spitting out everything in your path. That sounds pretty Katamari to me.
All right, you ready to play this game?
Let's play it!
We just played Tornado Outbreak for, 30 minutes?
Yeah, I think we both probably played for about 15 minutes.
Matt nailed it when he said Katamari. You want to tell him?
Yeah, I think it really is this Katamari thing, because you're just a tornado, you're given this environment to play in, you run through it, items that are within your same size, you can pick those up, they go into your tornado, you break them apart, and then they go into your tornado. And it's also this very cartoony graphic style. So at first I thought, okay, maybe a simpler Katamari, but then later on the timer was added. So, I mean, I'm willing to go ahead and say this is pretty much a variation on Katamari.
Yeah, and I was actually hoping the timer would never be introduced because it wasn't in the first couple of stages. And some of the other things that they introduced to vary the gameplay is there were these items that you could pick up and hold on to by holding in the B button, then release to absorb them. So the goal was to grab and hold as many as you could before you release the button, because as you held in the B button, it would slow your tornado down until you eventually stopped. Once you actually let the B button go and absorb them, it would add some time to your timer. And that was it. I mean, really, it was that and just moving around. I mean, the only control was the B button and just moving your tornado in the 3D space with the stick. You did have camera control, limited control. It was only on the X-axis. You could rotate it right and left. But it was kind of a shame because I thought the presentation of the game was good. The music was phenomenal. Even though it was totally unnecessary, the dialogue and voice acting was pretty good. But it felt like you were watching a Nickelodeon cartoon, so it wasn't exactly for adults.
And that's when I was thinking simpler Katamari. I think you brought this up when we were playing it, because I just thought, this would be good to have a variation on Katamari like this, because it's a simpler concept to understand. Most people can understand, okay, I'm a tornado, and I break things apart, and then I get bigger. That's a much easier concept for people to get down than I'm a sticky Katamari picking things up. That's a little bit foreign. But the timer and that other level of difficulty that's added with the timer, that's what makes this not as friendly of a game to kids, and that's what I think kind of ruins it.
Yeah, and there was some satisfaction involved with going, moving your tornado around the environment and pulling buildings apart and ripping the feathers off of chickens, and the sound effects were really good, funny, whimsical, but really good. And the music, like I said, was very good. And it was kind of satisfying to slowly grow your tornado into, to get larger and larger. But as soon as they introduced that time limit, that's what turned me off of Katamari. So I knew that was kind of going to be the end of it for me. Also, we did try the multiplayer. There's supposedly a multiplayer option in this game. We honestly couldn't figure out how to play it, so we can't really report on that. But it does speak to the menu system or the flow of the game, the way it's laid out. Obviously not the best in the world. I actually even found the menus to be just a little off, but not a big deal. There's not many options you'll go in and tweak anyway because it's such a simple game. I did want to address how the Wii version looks compared to the other versions. And those are actually HD versions, aren't they, Matt?
Yeah, the other versions are Xbox 360 and PS3, and they should by all means be HD. Didn't actually get a chance to play those firsthand, but I looked up some high-definition videos online just to compare with the Wii version. Pretty much look about the same. Obviously they look a little bit sharper being on those consoles with a little bit more power than the Wii, but nothing really left out on the Wii version.
Okay, let's talk about the story. What'd you think?
Like you said earlier, very Nickelodeon, but one thing that bothered me about the story was how long it was, even though it was such a simple concept.
Why is there a story, first of all? There really doesn't need to be. And the story was so ridiculous, so far from what a tornado destroying stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be very surprised with the story if it genuinely was something that they hired a kid's cartoon writer to pen the story for this, because it just, everything about it is very Nickelodeon, but unfortunately it goes on a little bit too long.
Yeah, it was like aliens in space, and there was this evil alien, and he stole this energy, and they discovered how to suck up the energy and use it, and they were talking about other planets and galaxies, and just stuff that had nothing to do with the actual gameplay. But you would see those characters, like they would be the ones who kind of walk you through the tutorials. So they found a way to kind of mash them together, but I don't feel like that was... It seemed like something that was tacked on at the end.
One thing that surprised me is that your character is the tornado, and they have a character to represent what's at the center and the core of that tornado.
But when you're actually playing the game and you're moving the tornado, you never see any of these characters, but when you sit still, he pops out of the tornado. So if you didn't see these story parts and these characters giving these tutorials, you'd think you were playing a totally different game. But bottom line, it's not that big a deal because, like we said, it's story. It really has no significance. It may draw in some younger players to want to get invested in the game, but I just thought it was unnecessary and really in the way because I just, after a while, started clicking right through the videos and text.
Just a couple more small miscellaneous gameplay things I wanted to mention. One thing that's different from Katamari is in the top left you have a level that your character's currently at. Obviously, the more stuff you pick up, your level increases and you get bigger. You have your level number up there, and then you also have a few little bars that show you how close you are to advancing to the next level. That's a nice little feature just to let you know how you're doing in the game and how close you are to your next level, and to look forward to your next level.
Yeah, that was something like the user interface, the music, the dialogue, the voice acting. The game was very well put together, but the fun factor wasn't there. And the Nickelodeon, I know we keep saying it, the story parts were just totally unnecessary, but it just looked like they had a really good team and a lot of solid parts of the game, but bottom line, it just wasn't fun.
And just one last thing that I wanted to mention. In Katamari, and I know Katamari and Nickelodeon are the reoccurring themes.
Beth, Google Katamari.
But as I was saying, one thing that I liked better in Katamari, I know we mentioned how the stuff is going into your tornado. You don't really see too much stuff fly directly into your tornado, and then it's there. One thing that's good about Katamari is when you roll onto something and you pick it up, that's there and that's a part of you. And until another object that you pick up covers that up, you can see that, and you don't really get that satisfaction with everything into this tornado. And everything looks the same once it's sucked into the tornado. It just looks like a tornado. Now,
you do see, though, I mean, there are times when you first break apart an object that you see debris flying around, but it disappears after a while.
So you just don't get that little satisfying touch that they have in the Katamari games. But overall, this is a very, very polished game. But like Blake said, the music is very good. The graphics look great for a Wii game, and I imagine they're going to look even better, of course, on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. And it really is a neat variation on Katamari, but if you've already played and fallen in love with the Katamari series, I don't think you're going to find a lot in this game.
Okay, we are back with our discussion, and we have a special guest, Jordan.
Hello.
And
sorry.
No, that was awesome. Okay, so basically, oh no, I said basically.
Is that a showstopper?
No, it shouldn't be. Okay. All right, you know what? I'm just going to, I do have a minute must. It's Dragster for the Atari. Okay, let's move on.
Good game.
It's really good, and like,
good
Retronauts. Yeah, Retronauts. And usually, trust me, I don't let stuff bother me because everybody has different opinions, and I'm cool with that. But they said that like Activision's first 4 releases, which included Dragster, were just forgettable and unoriginal. And I just thought, man, Dragster is so good. You know, so I'm kind of just trying to balance out the universe by saying Dragster is actually a really good game. It's unfortunately a game that you can't experience through emulation. You have to have the joystick because you slap the joystick to change gears, and it's really a very physical experience, which is fun.
You're right. Like there really isn't anything that can compare to the feeling of slapping that joystick and changing those gears as quick as you can.
Yeah, I mean, if you try to do that with a thumb, like a D-pad, that's just not going to work. And
oh yeah,
same
you
thing.
Slap it with your whole hand.
Yeah, there's a lot of games like that, especially from the classic days, but also from current days. Okay. Sorry, I let that fall apart. So seriously, okay, do you guys think that games are evolving or settling into a rut? Jordan, you said they're settling into a rut. Matt, you said they're evolving.
I think they're settling into a rut.
No, I've got some arguments against that. Look at our top 10 game sales from MPD, not MPR, from December. Half of the games are like Wii Fit Plus, Wii Sports Resort, Wii Play. Games that, before the Wii came out were probably not even conceived of. So that's originality. That's growth.
But Wii Play is a bad game. Do we count that? I mean, genuinely,
okay.
If it's a bad game, if it's a step backwards in terms of fun.
Okay, what about Wii Fit Plus and Wii Sports Resort?
I think it's kind of a shame that we only get innovation with peripherals. Like, can anyone think of a game off the top of their head right now? It doesn't have to be coming out. It can have already came out, but what's a software-only title that really innovated?
Exactly. That was one of the reasons I wanted to ask this question. I mean, it's certainly not Call of Duty. It's not Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. I mean, all these games are RPG, or they fall into a genre, and most of them follow the exact same rules and controls that they did 10 years ago.
And the improvement of Call of Duty Modern Warfare is that you can level up online, and that's just meshing 2 genres together. I know I talked about this on a previous episode about Borderlands, and I do think that's a really fun game, and I certainly wouldn't mind more shooters incorporating RPG elements, but I don't know if I'm willing to call that a true innovation.
Okay, well, Jordan, you said that you thought we were falling into a rut.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you feel that way?
Well, I think that it's really neat that the games are starting to level up because you do feel like a reward when you level up. And it's really neat that I guess they're finding a way that, they can make a game look this way and people are very satisfied. I think everyone is really impressed with the way that Modern Warfare 2 looks. I mean, and I think, a lot of game makers have the potential of making a game of that quality. Like, that's a really good looking game, but Borderlands, unique style, great looking game.
What about the rut?
I think that sorry, I think that if they're gonna make us feel like we're getting more from the game, even if we're not, because they can put less effort into the game but feel like we're more rewarded. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's gonna get a little technical.
You mean because of like online interaction, for example, where they're no longer really programming AI, they're just letting two people play against each other.
Right. They're letting us make the game our own instead of them having to craft this great, amazing game, but they're just, creating a multiplayer or like a sandbox and then letting us do whatever.
Okay, so you brought up a good point, starting to talk about online gaming. That's another innovation that's come about in the last few years. And not just I play a shooter against you online, but also things like it posting your stats to Facebook or going online and playing these social networking games like on Facebook. There's a lot of different things going on by using the internet. And that's something that's brand new, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg on that. Yeah. So there are some, I think games are evolving. I really do.
Yeah, I think, earlier we mentioned 1 versus 100. I think that's a perfect example of, I love that game. I love to play it. And like everyone likes to play it together. And that's a very unique experience.
Yeah. Before we started recording, Blake brought up an interesting point of, and I mean, obviously it was joking a little bit, but you were reading the sales numbers and you...
Okay, I'll go ahead and do this. Here are some games from December's MPD, top 10. Assassin's Creed 2. That's basically just Tomb Raider. Left 4 Dead 2. That's just Doom. Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. That's just Dragon Warrior. It's like we're playing the same games that we were playing 10 and 15, 20 years ago.
With better graphics and better features, and I'm just really curious as to what our listeners think about that. Is that a valid point? Because at first it seems ridiculous because we have come a long ways in terms of graphics and storytelling and all these different things, but at their core we really are making RPGs and we're making shooters. So it's a really tough thing to come to grips with.
As a matter of fact, the 360 game breakdown goes like this: 17% shooters, 25% sports, 26% action adventure, and 13% vehicle games.
Wow!
So there's your Pitfall, your pole position. Okay, your shooters. I can't really equate that.
Well, what would Dragster fall into?
That's something else I want to talk about. See, back in the day, as they say, games were more abstract. You started with nothing and you could go anywhere. Now games have to fall into a certain genre or have to look a certain way or be for a certain audience. And so rather than making these totally original abstract ideas into games, we just kind of have a bunch of sequels coming out and remakes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because they have to be able to sell it. Like, they have to be able to sell the game, and that's why it has to fit into a known genre like that. Like, they can't be as abstract.
And they do cost much more these days to make. There's a much bigger risk involved. But, with the advent of downloadable content, maybe that can be offset some. It seems that a lot of the innovation is coming from these downloadable games that are cheap.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the creators of Pixel Junkie actually has is that the studio or is that the game?
Pixel Junk, yeah.
Pixel Junk. Yeah, I think the creator of Pixel Junk has like an interview that he just released about how the biggest innovation in the game industry that needs to come is actually inventing a new way of publishing games, and that was all that was needed.
Well, we have that with downloadable content.
Yeah, and that's what he does.
And that's why there's a lot of just individuals, it may even be people that's never made a game before in their life that just kind of want to, as a side project, make an iPhone game. And, they can just spend a few $100s and some time and actually do that. That's a door that's very recently been opened that was never available to anyone before just a few years ago.
What's the most innovative game you've played on a download service of any sort? Flower?
What little time I spent with Flower, I didn't really feel, I wasn't having a great time, and I didn't particularly think the visuals were that impressive. I just kind of felt like I was playing a tech demo.
I just mean Pixel Junk, they have a tower defense game.
I love that tower defense is like its own genre now.
Yeah, I mean, so many people are making tower defense games and they're so successful. I just mean, it's very tempting to say, okay, well, we'll have the innovation through download content because that'll be cheaper.
Right.
But
it's not necessarily
if you look
happening.
at the top list, yeah, I mean, if you look at the top games list on Xbox Live, what's their independent service? Not the arcade, but the even more independent.
The developer community thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that, like the top game downloads are like, I made a game with zombies, which is an overhead shooter. And it's not innovative at all. So, I don't know, I just think, just to be negative, I don't think we're necessarily getting that much more innovation from download games.
What about Braid? Okay, well, I think I think we really nailed it. The differences between, or the question of, are we evolving or are we standing still? And I think we have evolved somewhat. But software-wise, original idea-wise, we've kind of been retreading the same ground for years.
Yeah, it seems like the innovation is going to come in peripherals. Like earlier you read off a list of the top sales in 2009 as a whole, and really the most innovative title on there was Wii Motion Plus's Wii Sports Resort, which is a peripheral-based thing. So it's really interesting if the innovation is going to come from hardware now, if it's going to come from software, because I do think there are still things to be done with software. But I really want to know what our listeners think about what we said earlier about Left 4 Dead 2 is a variation on Doom, and Mario & Luigi 3 is a variation on Dragon Warrior. I really want to know what people think about that and how they feel about that, because at first it felt ridiculous to me, but when you start thinking about it, it's sort of a valid point.
Yeah, it is. I think so.
Boom. Thanks for listening.
Is there a game you'd like to know more about that the other guys aren't covering? Send your suggestions and opinions to meltheradar@gmail.com or follow us at twitter.com/tweettheradar. Or do nothing.
Changing the way we play controls. I mean, God, if it wasn't for, oh my
God, Nuna control nothing.
If it wasn't for companies changing the way that gameplay or players are interacting with the, oh my God. Okay.
This is good. This is really entertaining stuff.
Okay. No, because I'm going to get this out, guys. If it
Care Bears. Trying to throw you off the track.
If it wasn't for if it wasn't for, game makers, oh my God. Just kill me. Just kill me. Right now. Kill my mouth. Anyway.